Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Next Door NetAdmin. One of the things that you'll have seen in recent trends is that there is a strong recommendation for adding something called two-factor authentication to basically all your logins, everywhere you can anyway. What is it? Why is it important? I figured I'd talk a little bit about it. Two-factor authentication essentially means that you have another way of identifying yourself and verifying that you are who you say you are, besides your password, besides whatever your primary factor is. For this reason, it's also called multiple factor authentication, because there's no reason why you would have to stop at two. You could keep adding additional factors, but typically speaking, the most common variety you'll find is two-factor authentication. So first off, before we get into all the various types, it's important to know that there's essentially three classes of factors, and this is what separates them. Authentication can be performed by something you know, like a password, something you have, like a hardware token or your phone, or it can be something you are. Fingerprints, iris scans, facial scans if you're using Apple's Face ID or Windows Hello, these sorts of things. It's biometrics, essentially. There's a little bit of crossover in how you perceive these. And sometimes I still struggle with it myself, because you could say, well, I have the password. I may not remember it if it's like written down on a Post-it note. That's something that I have. It's not something that I know. Let's say that you're accessing your email. Okay, are you accessing email because you know your email address and password, or are you accessing it because that's something that you have? You have access to an email account. So there's some crossover there, at least in my mind, but fundamentally speaking, something you know is separate from something that you possess physically. And yes, you can say, well, I possess the knowledge of the password. Yeah. Try to stay with me here. We're trying to actually divide these classes so that they make sense. So something that you know, it's not tangible, but you know either the password itself or you know how to unlock the password. It all relies on knowledge as an essential component versus something that you have. If you have your phone with your email account set up on it, that's less something that you know, even if, you could retrieve the password for your email account and then get into it, but it's something physical that you have. You physically have something that gives you access to your email account or to text messages or etc. And then the third one is much easier. It's something that you are. It's just, this is a physical attribute of who I am. It's the face, it's the fingerprints, it's the eyes, it's however it is, that's your general classes of authenticators. And so when you're adding a second factor, you're adding a second piece of information. What are some examples of this? Well, let's say you normally log into your computer with Windows Hello. You just sit down in front of it, it, sees your face and it says, oh yes, that is the owner of this computer, I'm going to let you in. Well, that relies on something that you are. So if you wanted to add a second factor, could you just add a fingerprint as well? No, because when we're talking about second factors, it has to be from a different class, or else it's much the same thing. If somebody, grabbed you, grabbed your hair to hold your face up in front of the camera and then put your hand on the sensor, I mean, that's been reduced to a single factor. You. You are the single factor. So if you're not adding something else, which is a physical possession or the knowledge that you have in your head, then it's the same level of security as just having the face login alone. So if you want to add a second factor to that, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to log in with my face and a USB stick, a USB token. Or it's going to be my face and a PIN that I key into the computer. That all works as second factor authentication. It could be I normally log in with a password, and then I'm going to put in a USB token with a smartcard certificate on it. That works as well. So there's a few different ways that you can put these together. And then if you get ever into really high security stuff, I haven't, but I know about this, you might need to use all factors. It has to be something you know, a verbal passcode perhaps, or a written passcode. It has to be something you have. I'm presenting, my ID card, I'm presenting my smart card, and something that you are. And here is my fingerprint. Here is my iris scan. These sorts of things. Yeah, already there's quite a bit there to consider. So let's talk about the most common forms of 2FA that you will find, and their advantages and their disadvantages, okay? Standard factor of authentication online, pretty basic, everybody knows it, it's a password. We really should be trying to get rid of passwords because passwords suck, honestly. But for now, we're still working with what we've got. Most things are going to require a password. Fine. So, how do we add a second factor to that? One of the most common ways that you can do this is with an emailed passcode or an SMS passcode. These both suck. They really suck. From a security standpoint, they're not good. Most email is sent unencrypted. And even where it is sent with an encrypted connection, the contents of the email are usually not encrypted. It's just the connection that's encrypted. And even when it is, there's an awfully large chance that you can actually pretend to be, hi, I'm an email server that doesn't support connection encryption. Can you just, send that to me in the clear? And a lot of times the outgoing server might do exactly that because it's focused on making the connection and passing the email along rather than making sure it's secure the whole way through. It is very, very, very easy to snoop on an email, and SMS messages are not encrypted at all. That wasn't a thing back when they were created. So if you send a text message, anybody with a scanner, with a radio scanner, can just listen for the announcement coming through destined for your phone number, and they can get that code. Easy as pie. So it's not the best way of delivering it. And I realize that some providers, that's all they offer. So is it still worth implementing? Probably. Because not everybody has the ability to, stick a radio sniffer out there and grab the SMS heading to you. It does leave you open to some other attacks. What if somebody clones your phone number, does a SIM swap, goes up to the local phone store and says, oh yeah, hi, I'm this guy, and I lost my phone, so I need to replace my SIM card. Okay, sure, fine, here you go. Now they're you, and they get your 2FA code. Meh. It's still better than nothing, but it's not great. Another way that you can do this is something called TOTP or HOTP. Okay, more alphabet soup. What are these? TOTP is time-based one-time passcode. And HOTP is very similar. It's hash-based one-time passcode. Both of these work in a similar way, so let me describe it. you start with a secret value. This is the secret. And typically, to communicate this secret, it'll be a QR code on the screen. They'll say, open Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator or Authy or whatever app you're using. Hold it up, scan the QR code. Here it is. Okay, cool. And a lot of the times they'll also, hopefully, they'll have something that says, oh, if you're having difficulty scanning it, click here and you can actually get the secret code directly. Put it into your app or wherever you're going to be storing this. Once you have that secret code, this is where all the fun starts. There's an algorithm. There's a standard algorithm for taking this secret code and generating one-time passcodes from it. In the case of time-based, or TOTP, the algorithm goes by the clock. Every 30 seconds, it's going to change the value that's being displayed to you. You type in the code, and off you go to the races. Because the server knows what the secret originally was, and it also has a clock, it can do the same calculations and say, yes, this code matches what I would be expecting to receive. Hash-based is similar, except instead of changing by the clock, it just changes every time you say, generate me a new code. And once you hit generate that new code, it goes, okay, so this is code number 2. Give him code number 2. Oh, now he wants another one? Okay, generate code number 3. It could be months in between instances, but it'll remain valid until it's used, and then once it's used, you have to say, generate me a new one, and it'll just move to essentially the next one in the list. This has benefits and drawbacks. Benefit is you're not on a clock. You're not relying on time sync between you and a server, and you're not worried about, I'm typing this in with only 5 seconds left to go. Is it going to work? There's no time pressure there. Sure, okay, fine. The drawback there is it's not refreshing regularly. So if you're, let's say you've logged in, you're like, okay, I know that I have used a code. Let's generate a new one. Okay, you generate a new one in the app and you leave it there. It's not going to be invalidated ever until you use it somewhere. And therein lies another challenge, which is once you use it in a particular place, let's say you've connected to server A and you've used this code. Let's say that server A fails and it just, has a sudden blue screen of death and you can't log in because the server stops responding. Okay, so you go back to the same website. It's a server farm and server A has gone bye-bye for the time being. So you're talking to server B. How does server B know which code you're on? Server A went bye-bye before it could actually record the fact that you tried to use this code. Well, you can try using the old code. Maybe server B will accept it. Maybe server A already wrote the fact that it was used. So maybe you try to anticipate this and you generate a new code. Okay. Does that match what server B is expecting? How do you know? And if you try too many times with something that doesn't work, maybe your account's going to get locked out. That's not fabulous either. So there's ways that you can do this. There's ways that you can get around both of these. For hash-based, where it's just code 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the server might say, okay, well, let's see if it matches anything from codes 2 through 5. I don't know for sure which one the user is going to give me, and I don't necessarily know if it's going to be a repeat. So, maybe they hit generate new code a couple times because they were frustrated. And so we've gone further ahead in the list than I was expecting. So there's a window where you want to accept that. And the same thing happens with time-based, one-time passcodes as well. Typically speaking, it's pretty common to allow one validity period before and after, which means if you're trying to put in a code that is valid for this 30 seconds, you can actually put in the code that was available before or the code that was available after. So that even if your clocks are slightly out of sync, you can actually put in a passcode that was valid anywhere in a 1.5 minute window, and it will still be accepted, even though, technically speaking, it's only valid for the 30 seconds. There's a grace period that you can enable. Some services might even allow you, if you're an admin anyway, you might be able to configure it to say, I want to allow 2 validity periods. So a full minute before, a full minute after, and the 30 seconds in the middle. You can do that. The more validity periods you permit, the wider the tolerance in clock skew. But the more likely it is that somebody enters a code and an attacker, can block that connection and then reuse that code, and it'll still be valid within, your expanded validity window. So there's, like I said, benefits and drawbacks to all of these things, but they can all be worked around. TOTP is my preferred method of 2FA. Gonna say it because I like that it refreshes automatically. If it's valid within a 1.5 minute window, my phone is synchronized to cellular time. So it's not like my phone's going to go out of skew. And if the server I'm logging into is going out of skew, then shame on the admin, because they really ought to know better. So that's not my fault, that's their fault. Regardless, TOTP also has the advantage of, if you have the secret code, the original seed, you can put that into any service that supports generating these codes, and as long as it has a sense of what time it is, it has a clock, then it can generate a new code. You don't even have to be online to do this. I've had a friend who went, there's no way I'm going to use this because, it's Google Authenticator. That means that it has to ask Google what the code is every single time. If I don't have internet access, it's not going to work. And I went, no. You put the secret code in, and as long as your phone knows what time it is, it doesn't need internet access, it doesn't need data, it can tell you what the passcode is, because all it relies on is that initial value and then the current time. Easy, simple. You can also take this secret code if you're using a shared account. Let's say you're working at an MSP, hello, and you have a 2FA code for a single account that everybody needs to have access to. If somebody needs to log into a DNS provider for a specific customer, they've assigned your company, the MSP, a single account. Okay, so this is a single shared account. If it has 2FA, everybody has to have access to this. It may not be practical to get 20 people to put every single account on their phones. But you might have a service that allows you to put that secret value for 2FA into, say, a website, a password tracking website. And once it's in there, the website can use that code plus the current time, and every time you're like, what's the current 2FA code? It will tell you, this is the current 2FA code. This is the current 2FA code. I've heard that some services like 1Password have much the same thing. So it's pretty flexible while also being pretty secure. Cool. What are some other ways? Because I've talked about that one for a long time. Another way that you can do this is essentially a challenge response. If you have a specific dedicated app for this, it can generate a key code, and then it can do some really fancy things where if you want to log into the website, it sends a query out to the app. You can just tap yes, it's me on the app, and the app will use its private key to sign the request and send it back to the website so that the website knows, yes, this request was verified as coming from this phone. It had the right private key and everything's good. Off you go. Disadvantages to this. It's very proprietary. Here's an example. Fortinet. Fortinet has a system for doing this. It's called FortiToken. They have their own FortiToken app. If you want to log into anything Fortinet, you got to get their app. I don't want that. I want one app that I can use for all my accounts. And everybody will go, oh, well, you can add the regular codes into our app too. Yeah, but now I'm still going to have to get everybody's app. Because Fortinet's only going to let me log in with the FortiToken app. Microsoft Authenticator has its own methods, and it says, oh, just use Microsoft Authenticator and you can do number matching. Just something else. Which works on the same principles, but it looks very different. Google Authenticator will say, well, I'm just going to store all of your regular TOTP codes. Okay, well, you can take all those TOTP codes and put them in Microsoft Authenticator or in FortiToken, but both of those services, if you want to use number matching on Microsoft, you have to use Microsoft Authenticator. If you want to use FortiToken to log into Fortinet, you have to use their app. And incidentally, Fortinet's only other choice is email. So I can be secure and have to use your specific app, or I can be insecure but still have compatibility. And you don't have a standard method like TOTP in there? Shame on you. Anyway, sorry, I got opinionated there for a second. Regardless, this is why I like these standardized methods. Anytime you go to something that is a little more advanced but not standardized, now you're getting into everybody wants you to do their own thing. It's like cable TV all over again. I need to get a specific bundle of like 12 channels just to get the one that I actually want. I'm not interested in that. It's like the streaming wars all over again. If I want anything Star Trek, I gotta go to Paramount Plus. If I want Marvel or Star Wars, I gotta go to Disney. Nobody's sharing anything anymore. Standardization helps prevent this. Here's a standardized way of doing this. Any app that supports it will do this. If you're using TOTP, I don't care if you want to use Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, FortiToken, I guess. That's your choice. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but I don't have to. If you're using the standard, you can use whatever you feel like and it'll work fine. So, and if we talk about, those are the most common methods of 2FA. If you want to get into other things like smart card certificates and biometrics and all the rest, that the rabbit hole gets a little bit deeper. So we'll perhaps leave that for another time altogether. And yeah, if you have any questions, if you have any comments or suggestions on things you'd like to hear me talk about, or points that you think I should have talked about in talking about the common types of 2FA out there, let me know. The comment section is open. Post something and I'll see it probably pretty quickly. Otherwise, hopefully you found that interesting and maybe even enlightening. But regardless, thank you very much for watching. I am your next door netadmin, and we'll see you next time.